Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right. Hello to those who are not from this module. So for your information, this is the narrative writing module. It's a class, actually, a 1-hour class. Narrative writing is basically script writing, where the students write for the screen, for film specifically. And so most of them will be my students in this class. We also joined by others, lecturers and other students alike. And we are on a tight schedule because we only have 1 hour. So I'm just going to straight away start with the session. So for your information, for those not in this class, that this module in writing scripts, the methodology is, since it's practice-based, okay, it's not just about listening how to write scripts, it's not just the theory about it, but the whole methodology is the best way to learn how to write is to write. So basically students from week 1 all until week 14, all they do is write stories, and they write, they share it in class, we give feedback, they rewrite, and that process goes back and forth all the way until week 14. So we are now in week 12, and the students have just started writing the first act of the 10-minute short film. So what they did for about 10 weeks was to basically, from their own original ideas, is to develop on those ideas. This is fiction, okay? It's not non-fiction documentary, it's fiction. So they have been working on those ideas, structuring those ideas, developing those ideas in writing, from the character profile, world of the story, logline, story premise, synopsis, and ending with step outline. They've just submitted that for assignment 1. And now they are moving on to assignment 2, which is the script. And these are the only 2 assignments that they have for this module. So most of the students are first-time writers, I believe, writing scripts for the first time. And I never promised them that it was going to be an easy ride, but nevertheless, it should be enjoyable. So now, without further ado, we have a very special guest, all the way from Hollywood. We have our adjunct associate professor, Renee Pillai. So say hi to Renee.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. So I want you to know, yeah, students, that this is a super duper rare opportunity. I never had this when I was a student. Yes, we had professionals coming into our class. We had filmmakers, screenwriters, but never an academy member from Hollywood. So you are getting this. So feel, privileged. So what is an academy? It's basically it's the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in Hollywood. They are the ones, among other things, they are the ones who are controlling Hollywood. They are the ones who organize the Academy Awards. Yes, they vote for who wins, best picture, best screenplay, and etc. So Renee is, Malaysians should be proud. She is the only Malaysian who is a member in the Academy. So this is, so don't play with her, okay? But don't worry, Renee is super nice. She's perhaps less strict than me, because I've been tough on my students. They know me pretty well. So Renee is here to give feedback, because our methodology is practice, is learning how to write by writing. So we have selected 2 scripts from class, and we will be going through the first act of those 2 scripts. It's not going to be long. It's just about 3.5 pages, act 1 for a 10-minute short film. And so Renee will be giving her feedback on yours, and we'll be doing script reading. So before we start, probably hand over to Renee if you want to say a few words, Renee.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited to go through this live reading with you guys. I've had my scripts live read, so I know how exciting and nerve-wracking it can be. But trust in the process, and I think we're going to have a good time. I hope for open discussion, especially when we go down to after the reading, you know, kind of dissecting what the script has shown us, and kind of discuss the finer elements of what it is that makes a compelling first act. Okay, so let's ready to have some fun. I'll give it back to Azrin to tee us up for, I think, hers piece here to be, right?
Yeah. So I'm deciding that yes, the lecturer gets to decide. I'm deciding that we'll go with Hor's script first. Hor, if you can just wave so that people know who you are. Okay. Hor is originally from Egypt, but she's been living in Malaysia for the past 10 years, right, Hor? Yeah, so don't worry, she eats nasi lemak and eats goreng pisang as well. You have done your casting, Hor? Okay, call them out and let's start on your call, Hor, to have your script read, and please share screen your script as well. All right, Hor, I'm making you co-host.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Should I maybe? No, I'll just.
Yeah, she's super nervous, Renee.
No, do not be nervous. I said, like, let's have fun. Just pretend that you're just like, we're all friends here and you're just telling us a story, okay?
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So I actually changed my title. I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's all right, but
That's perfectly all right.
okay. So, is everyone ready?
This is too big, Hor.
Yeah, okay, this is good. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just start right away. Okay. Fade in.
Hor,
Mm.
I hope someone else is narrating the script for you, not you.
No, I'm the one narrating.
Which is not a good idea, actually.
Why?
Okay.
Yeah, shall I take this? Because you wrote the script. This is the perfect opportunity for you to hear how it sounds, get how it feels. So if somebody else is doing it, you can have fresh eyes. You can take a step back from it. So it's always ideal to have a group of people doing this so that you can be that kind of omnipresent presence there to really get the feel of what you've written.
I understand. Okay, sure.
Okay, cool. So we can just pick somebody, shall we? Could we? For the narrator, at least for the.
Okay, my favorite voice in class is Janice. Are you playing a character in this story, Janice?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are. Okay.
See, her had the same idea.
Right. Then I just have to call this guy. He has not read a script in class. Matt. Are you there,
hello?
Matt?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you do this?
The narration? Sure.
Yes.
No problem.
Okay, don't go wrong, yeah, Matt.
Sorry.
We're counting on you.
Pressure's on.
Right. So action is a Hor's call.
Okay. Action.
Matt.
Should I just start with the narration right away? Fade
Yes.
in. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Fade in. Hazel's studio apartment, night. The moonlight shines through the cream blinds, casting a pale blue glow, slow dancing across the apartment till 14:15s, when it snows, blasting through the rusty nameless speaker. Sobbing with her face hidden in her hands, crouched up against the wall by her bed, is the workaholic but ever tender-hearted Hazel Grace, 23. All of a sudden, Hazel lifts her head up when she hears a knock on the door, revealing her puffy eyes.
Miss Grace! Miss Grace!
Hazel's eyes widen in fear. She sits tensed up, wrapping herself in her own arms.
Open the door! Hey! Open the door! How many times must I tell you to pay your damn rent? Miss Grace!
Hazel clenches her fists, shuts her eyes, and rests her head on the wall. Outskirts of Redfield City, night. It is pitch black with no soul in sight. Hazel, tightly clutching onto her wallet, staggers through the deserted outskirts of Redfield City, as if drunk. A step away from plummeting to her death, a sudden buzz startles Hazel. When she finds herself at the edge of a cliff, she loses her balance, crashing onto the rough concrete, both her phone and wallet flying off. Lying on her back, Hazel whimpers in pain.
Hello, dear.
Alarmed, Hazel lifts her upper body, looking around.
Dear, can you hear me, Hazel?
Hazel, desperate, frantically looks left and right. Breaking the deafening silence are two stray Rottweilers, barking furiously. Frightened, Hazel covers her eyes with her hands. Out of the blue, a silhouette runs towards her. Terror-stricken, Hazel drags herself across the concrete, but suddenly drops to the ground. Nana's bedroom, Sunshine Hill day. The room, dimly lit, embraces a cottage bed dressed in vintage floral sheets, a wooden side table, and a shabby cupboard across from it. Jolly Russian blue cat Luna vaults onto Hazel's face, who is passed out on the bed. Hazel screams, falling off the bed.
Ouch!
Hazel, confused, looks around when Luna rests on her lap, affectionately licking her hands.
Luna!
Hazel's gaze instantly softens, patting Luna's head. An old photograph sitting on the top of the bedside table grabs Hazel's attention, smiling joyfully at her. All of a sudden, rushing over is her ailing, self-sacrificing grandmother, Nana Ray, 71, with tears streaming down her face.
Thank God, my dear Hazy. Praise the Lord.
Still in a daze, Hazel hesitantly hugs Nana, her eyes fixated on the wall across from her, with a weekly calendar swinging left and right.
July? July? July?
Hazel screams, pushing Nana off her.
Nana, tell me this is wrong. It has to be wrong.
In disbelief, Hazel grabs the calendar, hysterically flipping through the pages.
It must be wrong.
Hazel, darling, calm down. It's June 27th.
The 27th? What about the 22nd? 23rd? 25th?
Hazel grabs her phone, but just before she storms off the room, Nana smacks the wooden floor again and again, pointing at her medicine. Panicking, Hazel rushes over to Nana with 2 tablets and a cup of warm water, assisting her as she consumes the medicine. Nana's bedroom, Sunshine Hill, moments later. Nana and Hazel sit side by side on the wooden floor as the sunset paints the room golden. Nana, gently caressing Hazel's hand, kisses her forehead.
Okay, thank you all. Over to you,
You
Renee.
guys should give yourself a round of applause. Seriously. Okay. Can we get a shot of everyone again? Can we go back to like the class?
Yep. You want her to? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, her.
Hi.
That was well done. That was well done.
Thank you.
And everybody else who took part in it, that was well done as well. Seriously. Okay, so the first act, I thought it was great. I had actually seen your outline and your synopsis, and I will admit, usually when in the business we get the script, we don't really see all the rest of the stuff unless we ask for treatments and things. So I will admit that when I read the outline, I was expecting something different, because it really pointed towards seemingly that she had kind of like committed suicide or fallen to a death or something. And that I thought was the inciting incident. But I have to say how you handled it here. So when you reach that point here, I was a little thrown. I will admit that. I was like, oh no, that's missing. It's been changed into the chaos of the Rottweilers and being chased. But you really brought it back with the July. It's July. How is it July? That started piquing interest. And which brings us to the very important thing of the first act. It's got to make you want to continue reading. And in the industry, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but you get 10 pages. A lot of times producers, studios, they don't go through the whole script. They go through the first 10 pages to see if they want to continue reading. They can tell whether or not, and through the years, it's gone to like, I can read 5 pages. I can read 1 page and I can tell whether it's good. So what are the things that you need in a compelling first act? You need to be able to introduce the characters. You need to be able to introduce the world. You need to be able to paint what it is that the story is about. And also to introduce the tonality of your film. You guys are familiar with this tonality, which means the tone of the film. Am I coming in to watch an action, a drama, a thriller, a comedy, or a combination of all, as was done brilliantly in Parasite? So to break it down, to go through this, and her, am I saying your name right?
It's her.
Her.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
her. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Her. So at any point, if you want to like ask anything or kind of counter to the statements that I make, please feel free, okay? So what I've got to say is your descriptions are great, very nice, very detailed. I'll tell you an example, and I'm doing this from memory because I don't have a copy of your script yet. Things like the slow dancing of the, what was it, the sun, the light across, that is very descriptive, that is great. It creates a kind of mood and the tone as well. Like I always say, anything that you write, whether it's description or character, or whether it's action or description or characters or dialogue, has to play more than one function. Really good film scripts have lines that play more than one function. And what you did that here with that. The other thing you did, the nameless speaker, that tells me that she's too, she doesn't have enough money for a brand name speaker. That tells me about character. That tells me even before going into it, I'm like, I think she's going to have some money troubles. And then you keep going on, and there's this landlord who's banging on the door. Very well acted, by the way, whoever did that. I enjoyed it. I liked the banging as well. That was amazing.
Yeah, who was that?
Who was that?
That was me, Daniel.
Daniel,
Okay.
great job.
Right.
Great job, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who casted Daniel?
Me.
Sure, yeah.
Great job. Great job to you. So all of that menace, and I think it was great keeping him off screen, having that voice barking at her. Only thing is it's obvious she's owed him, and I'm nitpicking here, she's owed him for a while. Would he call her miss? Would he call, or would he just, you know what I mean? Would that politeness still be there? Instead of Miss Grace, and would again, it is a choice thing, but just getting into the character and into the moment. What would he go like Hazel Grace, if Grace is her last name, and then the rest of that. What very interesting thing, you wrote the damn rent, Daniel changed it to your damn rent. Did you find that more kind of powerful in that moment, right? So see, when you're listening, you get to, so now you can change it to that and go like, oh, this is better now, and not credit Daniel. But it's a great way to see how, as it comes out in that moment. That's why script readings are really good stuff. So we continue down to the next, and you have her staggering as if she's drunk. She's got, she's holding on tight to the wall. Again, it's wonderful because it's painting character. It's showing that this is an example of how you use your first act to really give you that feeling of your protagonist. And in many ways, maybe you're starting to sympathize with her. And I think you did that very well, and maybe on purpose, by having this chaotic situation with the Rottweilers of her falling and stumbling. And that, again, if you write things well, there's symbolism in it, which you didn't realize. It's symbolic of this person who has been failing again and again. I don't know if that was your intention, but that was definitely something that came out. So if you didn't intend it, that was very smart of you. But if you did intend it, then it came across. And then it goes to Nana's bedroom. I think, because again, I don't have the script in front of me, I think, what was the segue between that? Was it, did you use sound? Did you use an audio cue to like segue between that? There was the buzzing that startled her and she dropped. And then how did we go from her running away or something to Nana's bedroom?
So when she drops,
Yeah.
she loses consciousness. So she just wakes up when the cat jumps on her face.
Okay, all right. So again, this is a first draft. There is a kind of tonal shift in that. And I'm thinking perhaps it could work, but I am thinking you do need to kind of massage that a bit more, because there is this sudden shift between this whole gritty kind of person and then suddenly she's, but I see where you're going with this, again, because I'm familiar with your step outline. How it does represent a place of safety and security. So I will say that kind of threw me a bit, because it was a sudden shift. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it can work, but perhaps the shift needs to be elevated, heightened. I'm sure Azrin has talked to you guys about this ad infinitum, but all story is drama, all drama is conflict. And if you can have that juxtaposition, that difference further apart, it just really strengthens the impact of what you're trying to do. And then I was faked out, because I thought like it was going to end with like, oh, did she die? Did she not die? And that didn't happen, but you got me back in with the whole July part, which was very well done by Janice, by the way. That was really cool, the way you went like, July, why is it July? It made me panic. So that was really good, because now moving into your second, third act, and finally to the third act and your final denouement, I'm really wondering what's going to happen now. Why is it so important? Why is she freaking out about the dates? So that's a job well done. So I think what you've done is you've managed to hit many of the key points of what it takes to make a compelling first act, which is you've introduced in a very interesting way the main character, other supplementary characters, the world that it inhabits, the situation, and you're moving it very swiftly along to the mystery. I always call it the mystery, no matter if it's not a mystery, the mystery of the story, to make people want to know more and get deeper into your second act. And of course, hopefully finding all the way through. So I would say, good job. You still need to do some work, like what I said, give it a think about the juxtaposition and the sudden shift. Look at the dialogue again, because a lot of it can be tightened, and this is perfectly normal when you're doing your first draft. So before you, just a question, before you did this first draft, how many outlines of the script did you do?
Not many, I would say.
Oh, that's fine. That's
yeah.
what it's all for. It's just that the more that you do, and it's we always say, like, when you're outlining, do the story, so you have the story, and then you start filling in the dialogue. But sometimes when you're writing, the dialogue comes in your mind. There's nothing wrong with putting it down, just so that you have it, and then you can massage it even by the time you start writing your first draft. But overall, in my estimation, this was well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a few questions, unfortunately, Renee.
Yes.
Playing the devil's advocate here, right?
Always. I enjoy that. We need somebody like that. Yes.
Because I don't want her to just be smiling.
Yeah. He is mean.
Well, this should be a 10-minute short film. And being a short film, it works differently than a feature film where you have 2 hours to basically, let your story out there. So things must happen fast, right? So what do you think about the inciting incident though, from what we heard or what we read just now? Did it feel like an inciting incident?
I think that's what I'm finding the issue. I pegged it as maybe perhaps the juxtaposition of it was not strong enough, but it does paint the mystery, but a call to action that's kind of missing.
Yeah.
Like what is pushing her towards this? So we have this mysterious thing. She's lost time. She's been unconscious for like months. I don't know what happened. I want to know what happened. But what is that first step towards? Because you end on a very soft kind of like the sun is, or the sky is painted golden. I'm quoting it. I don't know if that, but I think that's what you wrote. It was a very, as Azrin pointed out, it's a very soft kind of transitioning into something. And yes, it does not feel like an active push forward in the story.
And my second question is, yes, we all know that Act 1 is where we set the story, like you mentioned, and part of the Western tradition of telling stories where it is character driven, where Act 1 is where you establish the goal for the protagonist. So the question is, did you feel that there was a certain task for the protagonist, a certain goal that the protagonist has to go for?
I think really what I felt from this movie and even from the outline was there was a sense that it was one of those, it's not in that traditional kind of sense. It is character driven, but it felt a little, this is not a bad word. This is what it felt like. It felt like an experimental piece where it was going to be more of a slow burn. So in terms of pushing the character and what the character was supposed to achieve in task-wise, no, that wasn't apparent. But what you did was you had me guessing, like, was it to get money? Well, first of all, get some rent to pay this guy who's banging down my door. So I think there was this feeling, there was this immediacy that I enjoyed, because then it made it interesting. But yeah, it can be strengthened if by the end of that, or even moving into, like, if somehow you could utilize the next scene where, especially in Nana's bedroom, to further paint in some of that, like giving her something else, because now she's in a safe place. So that task becomes moot, finding the money to pay her landlord. So yeah, there wasn't that kind of overall overarching kind of task. But I felt that maybe her was telling a story that was more exploratory.
So I do see it, and I hope Hur is understanding all of this. You're getting 2 voices now, Hur. So it's not just me, but perhaps it's a good idea, isn't it? What if all classes have 2 lecturers giving feedbacks like this? They all go crazy.
Like the devil and the angel, and then they'll all run away like, oh, who do we listen to? One is
they'll be too scared to write. But yes, I accept that. Probably we could, based on the mysteriousness that was, yes, I do admit that was successfully created in the first 2.5 pages. That probably that's where Hur wants to take the story to. That it's not the traditional and very explicit character going after the goal kind of thing. And yes, of course, with short films is where you can experiment.
Yeah, but if you're gonna do that, you need to, in every scene, also have that kind of urgency that you had in your first scene. And I think that's one of the issues that I keep going back to Nana's bedroom, and I know what it symbolizes, but it's just not hitting strong enough. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be, I have the feeling that you kind of wrote that first part like very early on, and then, oh, I have to finish this, and you kind of put that second part in. Is that what happened? So yeah, it shows, but overall, I agree with Ajrin. You did successfully create that part. So even though you kind of only just did it, you had that one part. Now, if you can get everything else as strong as that one part, you'd have something.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions for Renee?
No.
That's fine. That's fine. I think we gave her a lot.
Okay. Anybody has any questions for Renee on this script? Any of the cast, maybe? Okay. Right.
Okay, cool.
Right. So do we then move on to the next
Yes,
script?
let's
Because
go
we
to
have
the next.
slightly less than half an hour left.
Yeah.
And the next script is Yumitra. So just wave your hand, Yumitra.
Hi, Mitra.
All right. So you can share now, Yumitra, and call out your cast and your call. Just start straight away.
Just everybody ready? Daniel, you, please, Janice. Charity. Okay.
And just an introduction to Renee. Yumitra is not Egyptian. She's very much Malaysian, right?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Right. Fade in. Interior, Charitra's bedroom, sunset. A bone-weary and terminally ill Charitra Iyer, 59, sits on a king-sized bed. She looks frozen in time, with dazed eyes fixated on something far away. Shadows of the setting sun dance across her face as Charitra hears her doctor's voice in her head.
I'm very sorry. Wait. I am very sorry, monsieur. The scans show that your breast cancer has indeed metastasized. It is covering significant parts of your lungs and your liver. It is only a matter of time now, I'm afraid.
Her daughter, steadfast and sensitive perfectionist Leela Raman, 30, attends to her, covering her legs with a blanket, adjusting the pillows, and giving her medicine whilst talking. But Charitra can only hear the doctor's voice.
It's only a matter of time now. Matter of time. Matter.
3 naughty little children, 6 to 10, 2 boys and a girl, launched themselves like cannonballs onto the bed and startled Charitra. They shower the elderly woman with sloppy kisses, squealing and giggling with joy. Leela tuts and sighs with a concerned look on her face as the children settle on top of their grandmother. Charitra takes in the sight of the children and smiles, a newfound warmth filling her eyes. The young children's mother, a self-centered Kavita Raman, 34, walks into the room.
Oi, let her rest, kiddos.
Charitra waves off her comment and hugs them tightly, eyes squeezed shut, as if to savor the moment. When she opens them, there's a resolute look on her face.
I want to host a party.
Charitra looks at her daughters intently.
I want you girls to host a party. For me, for my birthday, tomorrow.
There is a silence in the room.
A grand one, with hundreds of red roses, home-baked butter cake, live music and dancing, surrounded by the people we love.
Ma, we just got back home today.
Kiddos, why don't you all go play outside?
The kid stares at Kavita for a second too long before running off. Kavita pointedly looks at Charitra.
You're joking, right? You're in no condition to celebrate a birthday.
Well, I'm in no condition to do anything. Doesn't mean I just sit still till I drop dead.
Ma,
Well, then we are in no condition to organize a party in less than a day. Hello, breaking news. This is KKB. There is nothing grand that could happen without a 7-day notice.
I don't have 7 days, Kavita.
Karitra starts coughing hoarsely, pain visible on her face.
God knows whether I have 2. So make it happen.
Charitra starts coughing more, wheezing and panting. Leela urgently pours a cup of water and offers it, rubbing her back with a concerned look. Biting her lips, she nods decidingly.
We can make it happen.
Kavita shoots her a furious stare, which Leela returns with an equally powerful one, before beaming at Charitra.
We will make it happen. Oh Ma, it will be all that you wish for and more. Good food, vintage wines, twinkle lights and Polaroids. I can call the florist and maybe hire an event planner. We can make it happen, Ma. We will make it happen.
Charitra smiles slightly, nodding her approval.
You will make it happen, perhaps. I'm not going to be a part of this. She's not well enough for any of this, Leela. And I'm going to be stuck at the office all day handing over case files before I take the whole month off. So stop coddling her like she's 5.
Enough. You don't have to do anything. I'll do it. I'll manage. Just turn up. The house will be ready. The food will be ready. The music, the decor, everything will be absolutely perfect.
Leela dons a determined look.
Okay.
Yes. Flowers for everyone. Okay, let's go back to the class. Okay. Now, who acted as, I want to go to, I have a copy here, so I'm gonna just go to, there's one part. Who were the actors? Who played who? I know Daniel was the narrator again, right? Right? And Denise was Leela. And who was Charitra?
Me, Janice.
Oh, okay. I should have recognized your voice. Excellent. And who was Kavita?
Me.
Oh, you were amazing. I wouldn't have thought it was you. That was amazing. I loved it. Okay, let's start from the beginning. First of all, Yumitra, I really enjoyed this. This is very cool. Let's start again with, since I already covered it when I was talking to her, I hope I'm saying it correctly. All the things that you need for a compelling script. And here from the beginning, you paint that world, you paint that situation. And it's a very serious situation. I like how, again, you're creating more than just the description of this situation, but you're engendering that feeling. She looks frozen in time, days dies fixed in the distance. And she hears the doctor's voice. Now, small nitpicky thing, and I know that dialogue is notoriously difficult, because what dialogue is, and I'm just going to digress here for a little bit, but what dialogue is natural speech, but elevated. It's almost like if you think of like if somebody burns you and you want to have a comeback and you don't think of the perfect comeback until 3 days later, and you wish you had said it earlier, that's the line that needs to be here. That is because everybody in the movies comes up with the perfect comeback. So, but it has to be natural. Now here, looking at what the doctor is saying, we call this, you're giving all the information, you need it for the story. It's called exposition. But what the trick with exposition is to do the exposition without it seeming like exposition. So having all this kind of like, yeah, a doctor would speak with medical terms, but because he's giving bad news to this lady, perhaps he'd be it depends on how you see the character of the doctor, but perhaps he'd go like, your cancer has spread instead of your breast cancer has metastasized. We all went to medical school, that kind of thing. So having that more natural thing, small thing, whenever you're doing a parenticle, which is anything in parentheses, that always has to be in a Riley. It has to, the formatting, it has to be by itself. It cannot be in the middle of a block of dialogue here. But these are small things. Oh my goodness, I'm going too fast. Just a second. Okay, here we go. And then the introduction to Leela. I love that you've introduced her. She's this person. She's very like sensitive and caring and loyal and steadfast. But what you did was, does everybody see what she did here? What she did here was through the actions of what Leela is doing, you get a very clear picture of that. What she's done is she's described to her internals to you. This is what she is inside. And by the actions, she's showing what the person is inside on the outside. The actions are what are showing those characteristics. So that's well done. And then initially when the doctor, you hear the doctor's voice and it's echoing like, matter of time, matter of time, matter of time, matter of time. It felt really, when to read it initially, it felt really like weird. But then I realized tonally, like you have to set the tone as well. It actually fits for what you're going here. Because what you're doing here, it seems really tragic, but it's really funny at the same time. So kudos to that. At first I was like, oh, this is really weird. But then when I heard it perform, and I think you did as well, it actually fits to emphasize that. And if you didn't intend it, then it's a really lucky coincidence that it happened. The children coming in, Kavita. And also I must tell you that you have created some, just like her did, the characters are really interesting. They're very compelling. We get interested in who they are. And having Kavita here as sort of like the baddie, played very well by Charity, was great, because you know she comes in and you've described how she is. And there was a bit here where I really liked, was when the kids jump in and Leela's like, oh no, don't disturb, you know, Pati or anything. And she's that change over Charitra when she sees them. That was beautiful. That was very well done. But as we continue here, things like, and this is nitpicky, things like when Charita grows, I want to host a party. Sometimes less is more. Would she say that again with like the doctor thing? Would it have more impact if she goes there and then she looks at them and she's this sick, dying moment in bed and she goes, I want a party. You know, just like how we would, you know, so anybody would say, not so proper, not like I want to host a party. This is my last will. No, it's just like, hey, I want a party, man. You know, kind of play around with that, because then you see the impact of it, especially with the tonality that you're going for, which is tragic comic. Again, this is not, you don't have to put down everything I say. This is something for you to think, process through your voice, because this is all written by you guys, your voices, and process that. And then I love that there is a silence in the room, and when she carries on, I want all this, I want all the fireworks and everything, blah, blah, blah. And the two daughters are like, would it be better if you actually like, I know we get it. Actually, I was just thinking if you could put, there is kind of a stunned silence in the room, because that's what happened, right? She stunned them. So in certain ways, we always go for brevity. Like if you don't need to put the word, don't. But in this case, I think it might help if you actually painted what the reaction was. Because I don't know, I think Ajrin, in fact, I'm pretty sure Ajrin would have told you all these things, because I've spoken with him before, and he knows what he's saying, and it's reaction. It's in the reaction. So you have to paint that reaction. Yeah, just one word. There is a stunned silence in the room. Things like that. I love how she's gone into all this. All this is really great. But I will tell you the part that I love the most in this whole thing. Oh, and before I go to that, when Kavita goes like, kiddos, why don't you all go play outside? We've already established she's kind of like a selfish B word. And so, so, you know, I'm trying to be PC here. So would she actually ask the children, why don't you all like go play outside? You know, that kind of character. Charity is like stepped out, but it'd be interesting to find out from Charity what she thinks. Like in inhabiting that character, would it feel more natural for her to order? Because that's kind of like the tone, right, that she has. Instead of like, why don't you all go? Why, even if you say, why don't you all go play outside? It's just, it's not. Here's an opportunity to paint even more, solidify more of that character. Yes, Charity?
Or
Your
maybe
thought?
it's a bit more passive aggressive and underlying.
The tonality of it, right? And
Yeah.
underlying just the language of which you can play around with it and see, this is valuable. This is what you're getting as feedback from Charity, who inhabited that character. I'm just like really in awe with what you did, Charity. Big fan. So I think the line, my favorite line here is, I'm in no condition to do anything doesn't mean I just sit still till I drop dead. And I'll tell you why I love this line so much. Because all this while, from the very beginning, you painted it as such a dire thing. We're all supposed, this is a melodrama. We're all going to cry. This is like, oh, you know, she's going to die. We should be sad. By the time we reach here, we get an idea of like, no, this is not going where I thought it was. So, which is very beautiful in for a first act. To, again, like what Her did, which was to switch kind of expectations. And by doing that, creating that want, that need to find out more, to go into the second act, to go all the way to the third act, to find out what happens to these characters. So kudos for being able to do that and to capture and create such an interesting character who on her deathbed would go like, you know, I'm dying, but you know, I'm not dead yet. And to be able to talk so openly about it. Again, it's a very nice, like three-person kind of like between Leela and Kavita and Charitra in that. The dynamics are great in all of this. So you have covered that other part of introducing interesting characters, compelling characters in your first act and letting us in, especially for a short film, you have to get into it, into the meat of it and be drawn in very quickly. Again, I look at this and I'm thinking, always think with dialogue, less is more, and find the individual voices. I can see where you're going with this. Parts of it are really very well done. Same thing with Her, but you guys still need to, it's a first draft, so still go back and tighten that up with, especially with pertains to dialogue. I think there's a place here that struck me. Okay. I think it's because of how maybe Denise played it. When Charitra, you know, gets upset and she wants this and she starts coughing, and then Leela decides, you know, we can do this. Because everybody's like, this is insanity. We're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to enjoy it. You're in bed. You're going to be wheezing on all the guests. It's going to be like, what you've done is you're already painting, kind of foreshadowing what is going to happen, the disaster, the incredible disaster that this is going to become. But I thought what was really interesting about how Denise played this was in the first We Can Make It Happen, instead of being decided, it almost felt like she played it undecided. But then when Kavita challenges her with that, like, you know, and then she goes, we will make it happen. I really like that. So instead of, you know, maybe now that you've seen it, it's a really nice, and what it shows is the growth of the character. You know, here's this Kavita being really like bossy and everything. And Leela in doing that is also unsure, but becomes sure when it's almost like Kavita is thrown down a challenge at her.
Right.
And then I love how Kavita comes back with you make it happen. So just very great interplay for this kind of a story. It's really, really nicely done. We didn't read that last part, the one where you see her working on the, you know, on the internet, trying to get everything together. Because I think as Azra would have, I love where it ends really, because that is kind of the first act, you know, I'm going to do this. And then this shows her doing it, which actually points to what Arjun was talking about in terms of that inciting incident, that task that has been put on her and that she has accepted wholeheartedly. So really, I pointed out, you know, certain things that I think everybody has, like, in reading it and having these wonderful people, Janice and Daniel and everyone play these roles, have kind of shown us how you can have fun with it, how you can take it and make it deeper and better and stronger, really. So overall, I think beautiful work. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just have to say this, that I was drawn into it very early on page 1. I hated the doctor's voice. Sorry, I'm more
No worries.
explicit than Renee. Okay, I don't have to be as polite as she is, because I meet them every week.
I said the word. I'm not that polite.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the word that Renee was trying not to say was cliche. But probably if we are still going to retain the same words, probably if this script is given to me as a director, probably I would add like echoes or reverb to the voice that we don't see, you know, that it'll make sense. But what got to me was, and this is what Renee mentioned, and what I've also mentioned before this. You see, a lot of people say that we need conflicts in script. Most of the time, people don't know what conflict is. You see, so there are many things that make a conflict. One of it is, if you guys still remember, is contrast. So I get that contrast so early, because you get that doctor, she's like that, you know, like a vegetable in bed, and then suddenly, boom, you get all these kids jumping in bed. That got to me. I think it's brilliant. So this is how a short film should be. It should be quick. It's not a feature film. You got 10 minutes, you know. But this is not even a minute yet, right? But yes, I do agree that, and suddenly I feel differently towards Charitra. Now I empathize with her. You see, she knows she's going away, but then to the kids, this is our grandma. I mean, small kids, they just want to have fun, right? Jump in bed. It's funny on the first layer, but the next layer, it saddens me, you know, somehow, which is not easily done, but you've done it. And I know Renee wants to say, before I forget, Renee.
Yes.
And the second thing that got me was, which Renee mentioned, was later on when Leila stood up and said, yes, we'll make this happen. Okay. Most people here do not know where this is going to. I know, Renee knows, because we've read your synopsis and step outline. This is actually a tragic comedy. And if you still remember from last week, I told you, Mitra, make things go wrong for her in making this event, do it in a comedic way, right? But in the first act, you don't actually get a sense of this being comedy yet, okay? You feel that, oh, this is going to be a heavy drama about someone dying, you know? So to help that, I think, and I agree with what Renee said, and this is what I was talking about this morning, dialogues in film are not actual speech. Less is more. Cut, throw things away. I see a tendency here of you dragging your dialogues. Don't repeat things, especially when you already know them, like what Renee mentioned. So I think probably that would help. So if you play on the contrast more, high contrast always work. Yes, over to you, back, Renee.
Yes, I mean, just to build on what Arjun was saying, and in total agreement with him, it's the reasoning why. It's funny, but it's sad. And what that creates is, if handled wrong, it creates a kind of melodramatic pathos. It's like very drama, and not good drama. I mean, like the really cheesy stuff. But handled right, the poignancy, you're laughing and you're crying at the same time, and you do not know why. But it's a really great feeling. And exactly to Mira, it's really great that you managed to do this. Like I say it's beautiful that you managed to do that. And also what Azrin said, and we had this discussion before, him and I, it's so cool that you set the whole thing in almost one setting. It is one setting. It's not almost, it's one setting. And I say this because I reference it in my work as well. When the themes are big and the themes here are huge, as is the case with hers as well, the themes are huge. And so therefore, your setting can be small because again, it comes to the contrast. It comes to that juxtaposition, that difference that really emphasizes both and supports it. So very, very nice. Very, very well done.
Yeah. And I'm it's just 4 minutes left. I don't like it. 3 minutes left. I don't like this. If Renee don't mind, we can just stretch a little bit more. You know.
I mean, if everybody else a little bit more is, hold on one sec. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, sure. We can. I mean, yes, for a little, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me when you need to stop. okay,
Yes,
Renee?
it'll go off. So
Yeah. Because this is what happens when both, you know, Renee and I speak. We say that this is only going to take a short while. It drags on for hours. But this is the thing, you know. I want to mention this. That unless if one is interested in telling stories, you see, one would feel very bored with what we talk about, and sometimes even crazy to a certain extent, because we talk about the smallest detail in telling a story and how it seems so technical. And sometimes we talk about big things. But again, I've mentioned this before, if you guys can remember. This is what film is. There is no limit, because you're talking about life, and there's no limit to life. Even death is not a limit. And yes, you got to take it on a big scale, zoom out, and you got to zoom in to the smallest detail at the same time. And also, second point, Yumitra, with a story like yours, Renee is right. And I've mentioned this before as well to everybody in class. There is no room. I know it's part of your title, there, and that's your theme, but in writing scripts, as well as making films, there is no room for imperfection, sadly, because I mentioned this before, nobody wants to watch a bad film. No, the same as nobody wants to listen to a bad song. It has to be good. You've got no choice. But there is a fine line, like what Renee mentioned, you know, getting it right is going to be marvelous. People will love it. Or just slipping away a tiny bit, it will not go right. So the stakes are high, Yumitra. Unfortunately, and for your information, Yumitra is not a film student. She's taking psychology. Yeah. So just like Leo at the top there, above her on screen, yes, who's good at cooking chicken chops and fettuccine carbonara because she's taking culinary. So
I'm hungry.
Who played the doctor just now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job, Leo.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, yeah.
Yeah, but this is it. You know, we are both crazy, and you can only be in this. I'm talking about your future now. You know, guys. You can only be in this if you're crazy.
You do realize, Ashwin, that you're telling the psychology student that we are all crazy for doing this. Everybody, right? You heard me, right? You heard him, right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So
and one last thing before I hand it back to you or anybody who wants to ask questions is that I'm glad to have Renee here, Yumitra, and the rest. Okay. Don't think of who you are or where you are at now. Renee is a fine example. You know, there are so many people out there working in Hollywood. You know, they have different grades in Hollywood. And there are some Malaysians there. But being an Academy member is totally a different thing. I won't give details because this is like my thing with Renee. A lot of things I can't reveal that I know. But how did she get there? That's what I want to talk about. How did she get there? She didn't go to Goldsmiths like I did. I went to Goldsmiths and I'm still just here teaching you. I'm not even in Hollywood, right? She didn't go to any film school. I went to 3 film schools and now I'm in a 4th film school. So it doesn't matter where you come from. It's what you write and whether you believe in what you write. And how she got her foot there in Hollywood, because in 2019, right, Renee?
Yeah.
The Academy does this. I'm not quite sure if it's annual or not.
It is annual.
Yes, a script writing competition. And it was and they had what, like 7,000 submissions, right, Renee?
Over 7,000. It's closer to like 8 or 9 now.
Yeah, closest to 8 or 9,000 scripts
from around the world.
From around the world. She's the winner. So never underestimate. If you love this thing, okay, you won't be able to do this or go far if you don't love it. Never limit yourself. You never know where you can go. All right. But if you do happen to get there, you get out on stage, you receive that naked man in gold. Just don't forget me, okay? That's all I'm asking. Okay. Renee.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, everything Ajahn said is true. I didn't go like the direct route, but I love film. And I love creating and I just love it so much. So I just plugged at it. I don't know if any of you have read about me, but my journey was really difficult because I basically went to Hollywood with the equivalent of $20 US in my debit card. That's all the money I had in the world. I didn't even have enough money to like.
Look at Janice's face. Look at her. Do it again, Janice.
I didn't see that. Do it again. But I couldn't even check into the hotel room, which the Academy had paid for.
She's doing it again. Look at her.
Get closer to the. Okay, so like they need a credit card, right, to be able to get into a hotel room, and I didn't even have enough money on my credit card to do that. So it was very dramatic, but it was worth everything. And you have to be a little crazy to do that. So on the heels of that, I actually want to know from her and from Yumitra, what gave you the idea for these wonderful stories? So maybe her first.
Honestly, it's inspired by what I'm experiencing, but it's not like not everything is the same. I just took a problem and just wrote a story, changed a few things.
That's wonderful. I say that because I truly believe, and I've said this in interviews, that you cannot go wrong if your story has the seed, the germ, the smallest bit that is deeply personal to you. I don't know if all of you have heard this. Oh, write what you know, write what you know. And people think it's like write about, a job that you've done or something you studied in school or a hobby that you have. And it's great because you don't have to do that much research if you know all those things. But I think what really gets us, because the stories we love, if you think back about all the stories, all the movies that you guys have watched, that you really, really love, it's very universal. It might be set on the moon, but you like feel it, and you go like, yeah, I can be a robot because that robot is behaving in ways that I behave. And why is that? It's because the person who created this, the writer, imbued it with something deeply personal. It looks nothing like them. This person doesn't, because it's fiction, right? But because that germ of it is so real, is so something that is within you that you felt, you are able to. That's why I said like the details of like the brandless speaker, the speaker without a name, you probably have the same thing. It's just little things that you take from yourself. So that's wonderful. that you got it from a problem that you had, that you felt strongly about to write and to share it with us. Thank you.
And I just want to insert a bit there when you brought it up again, the brandless or the nameless speaker, right? It caught me by surprise as well, Hur. This girl always catches me by surprise. She did it in documentary because she's doing documentary as well. She's doing it again now. Because I keep telling them, especially when they were writing the world of the story, be specific, be specific, be specific, be specific, to the point of naming things. Because one of it, about brand associations, right? You can tell someone from the things that they wear, Obviously, a Levi's guy is not the same as a Lee guy, right? And obviously, someone who drinks latte in Starbucks is not the same as the guy who drinks black coffee in the local kopitiam, right? But she's doing it is still specific, but
yes,
nameless speaker. That is just like, you really got me there, Hur.
Hur, you were going to say something?
No.
Okay. It was very short. Okay, but thank you anyway. Thank you for sharing that.
Anything, Yumitra?
And yeah, I want to hear Yumitra's story of how she came up with the idea.
I guess I think it's a mix of two things. It's my fascination with this fear of death that people have, and like a more practical way of approaching death, which is something I guess I've had in open conversation with my family a lot. And on the other hand, recently a lot of people around me have been like falling sick, and not to say dying, but just like falling sick.
Well, yeah, it's COVID.
Yeah, I mean, besides COVID too. So I think it's been in my head for a while now. But the dynamics of the character, that's very much from my life, I would say. I think, yeah.
This is also interesting because I was telling Renee, part of my setting up the story for this webinar, my act one with Renee, which you guys don't know, is that I was telling her a bit about your history in writing the stories, that you had an entirely different story before this.
Right.
And then suddenly you made a sudden change, which I think is the best. And even you keep on doing changes. So it was still the Indian family, the Indian diaspora, but they were set in Switzerland. And then now you came back to Malaysia and it's Kuala Kubu Baru, totally different. So probably Renee might also want to know, why did you make all these changes?
Right. I think when I said it earlier in Switzerland, it was mainly because of the whole assisted suicide thing, and my story was going more in that direction. Yeah. So there's like no other place that I could have possibly put it in, because Switzerland is like the only place that for now does assisted suicide. But then I realized that I don't want to take it in that track for a 10-minute short film, because I could never do it justice in having somebody like actually die in the film. And so bringing it back to a place, I think, in class, Mr. Arvind gave like feedback about being very specific in the place and the world of the story, and being authentic to it, like a local. So I brought it back to Kuala Kubu, which is my father's side of the family's hometown. And the place that I've like set it in, this cottage and this courtyard and the garden kind of setting, is a real place. Like, it exists. I've been there.
I know, I've been there too.
There. Okay.
I mean, that's what struck me, your description of the place.
Right.
And because I didn't know about the Switzerland thing initially. And I just thought it was because, to come back to what we were talking about earlier, and Hur has done this as well, is it's big themes. It's about identity, it's about coping, it's about, how we deal with things. And yet you've said it in like small places, not small, that's the wrong word, contained places. And it actually makes it stronger. I mean, it's something that you feel. And I'm not sure if you guys actually can feel it, but I think you do now. I mean, you probably did all along. It's just that now that you know the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, this is interesting because when earlier on in the semester, when they were writing the world of the story, I think you guys can understand now why I wanted you to write the world of the story. It will help you when you write your script, of being present in that world of the story. One of the things I told them, Renee, was that don't write about places you've never been to. Because I've caught students doing this, they were writing about places in London and, you did a mistake there because I've lived there twice in my life. So it's a wrong description. But at the same time, and I've had, students before who were writing about Malaysians writing about stories happening in New York, but usually it tends to become very cliched and stereotyping, NYPDs eating donuts during breaks, So I know you're getting it not from your experience, but you're getting it from the films or the TV shows that you've seen. But at the same time, Renee here with her script that got her foot in the academy, the whole world of the story was set in Nebraska in the US. She never set foot there, even until today, I think, Renee. So how did that happen? It basically contradicts my points,
I mean, I don't think it directly contradicts because it comes back to the whole write what you know. And the story itself was pretty much about art, about the sacrifices you make for art. And the story is based around this famous reclusive artist. And I based it on this real life character, although that's she was the inspiration behind it, although I didn't write about her, was Georgia O'Keeffe, which was like a hermit kind of painter. She was, she painted and she became famous, but she lived in the middle of nowhere. And I was thinking, like, where can I set this? Can I set it in Kuala Baru or Uluyam? No, and it didn't work because you needed that scope. And the only place that could work would have to be in a country where these kinds of arts would flourish, where there would be a MoMA, a Museum of Modern Arts, where there would be the Guggenheim. There would be art galleries that would celebrate this, and that would be the United States. And then what I wanted was, I knew I wanted a character who was so not what you think an artist would be, like sophisticated and branded and like well educated. No, this woman was a redneck, was a person who came from the rural plains of one of those like villages kind of that you have in those places. And she's the last person you would think of as being an accomplished artist. And the landscape that would help to support this person who's very earthy and yet refined was Nebraska, with its glorious, beautiful hills and amazing. And where did I get all this? Because I've never been to Nebraska. I haven't even like set foot in Nebraska up to now. Was of course through pictures, through the internet, to just looking at that. But here's the thing. Before I even started writing the story, because it's the world of art, before I even put one word down, I spent 2 months just learning about art, about all the different artists, not just like what they painted, but how they were born, how they studied, how they died. I learned how paint was made. I learned how canvases were stretched. I learned about the whole process. And I learned about the symbolism of art. And this has been a continuing journey, because I started when I was like a kid, 12 years old, when my dad gave me a magazine about art, and it's just all this thing. So I wrote something that was deeply personal, something that I knew very well, but I said it in a place that would fit the story that I was going to tell. And Nebraska fit because of that ruggedness of the terrain, which again, everything takes place in one farmhouse. The themes are big. It was about redemption, because it's basically the story about this artist whose brother was also an artist, but he left it to have a family, and he died, and she never wanted a family, and she inherited his son. So it's just a very simple story, and it's a tragic comedy. It's tragic. It's like she doesn't like this guy. She's borderline abusing this boy, but end of the day, it is that seed to redemption, and it's a bit funny, I hope. So that was the thing that kind of got me to the attention of a whole bunch of people who are kind of famous, who I don't like to mention here, but that gave me my chance to break into Hollywood. And I did it by writing about a place I'd never been to, but I knew the feeling that I wanted to have it done. So that's the story. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with her name, Susanna Brockovich. She wrote, Susanna Grant. She wrote Erin Brockovich, which starred Julia Roberts. And she got nominated for an Oscar. And when she found out that I'd written a story in Nebraska and not having gone there, she said, hey, don't feel bad about it, because I wrote about Morocco and I've never been there. So sometimes, but that was the setting that was perfect. So since then, I've written about stories that take place on an asteroid, stories that take place in 1930, so time is a location as well. So you can have fun with it, but you have to be very sure about why you're doing it. Don't do it because it's cool, because, it's the worst reason to do it, because it's convenient. How many of you go like, hey, let's go watch Top Gun Maverick, it's convenient? None of you are going to say that. That's not the reason you're going to go watch that movie. You're going to watch that movie because you want to be excited or whatever. You want to see the story. You want to see whether Tom Cruise is like whatever. But you're not going to go watch it because it's convenient. So if you're not going to watch a movie because it's convenient, don't, for heaven's sakes, don't write one. Don't set it in a place because you think it's convenient. Yeah? Any questions about that? Anybody want to say, no, that's wrong, Renee? That's fine. I can be wrong.
Yeah. So before we get Renee to actually wrap up, and conclude, because it's like 1 hour and 20 minutes already, almost 1 hour and 20 minutes
I'm
already.
gonna have to go soon. Yeah.
Yeah. And any questions from anybody for Renee?
Anything at all. You can ask me, even unrelated to this. Seriously, anything.
I have a question.
Okay, yes, thank you.
So regarding the location, for example, mine is just something I made up. It's not actually a real location because I honestly don't really resonate with any place since I never lived in my own country and I moved. So I don't have a place that I really know that I really. So that's why I decided to just set it in a fake place, like a fantasy, thing that doesn't exist. So would you say, is that okay, to just make things up, or is it better?
I mean, like I said, have a reason for it. And you seem to have, because even though Redfield, I mean, it could be a housing estate somewhere in the UK or in Malaysia or in Arkansas. It could be, because the name Redfield. It could be a plane in Mars. But what you've created with that name, I think is the feeling that you feel. You felt for where you came from and where you are now. And that because I think the colors that you chose was very telling.
Yes.
That kind of, and because you stayed true to that, because you created that place from a place that exists inside of you, I think it works. It does. I mean, it might not have instantly when you say, oh, it's in New York, and then people think of what is that? The Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building. There's all these landmarks that people can think of. Oh, it's very busy. The streets are very, very full of traffic. But you kind of did a similar thing with this Redfield place that was kind of like a scorched earth, kind of hopeless. And then you juxtapose that with I'm going to get this all wrong because I don't have your script in front of me. The sunny field.
Sunshine Hills.
Sunshine Hills. Yeah, sorry. Redfield, Sunshine Hills. You created a place that exists within yourself and you kind of externalize that internal. And Yumitra, the psychology student here, is finding this really fascinating. But you did this. and the thing about real art, about writing stories that people are going to relate to, is you're going to have to expose yourself a little bit. You're going to have to be fearless, brave. And I think you were very brave in doing that. And that's why it works. It actually does work for me in being able to create a place like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question.
I would like to ask. So,
Say your name first.
I'm Gabriel, and yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So literally, the script I wrote for this assignment is actually a satire of my university life. Like, yeah. So for the story, I literally wrote the whole setting based on my university, and yeah, and all the characters that I written is literally based, including the lecturer students, are literally based on real people that I met, and
yes.
Yeah, so his story is interesting, Renee, because everybody's an alien in that story, including lecturers and students.
Wow.
So yeah.
No, actually the whole the part when the invasion is actually a prank, and
okay.
And there's a huge plot twist at the end. So
that's the minute he said that, the minute Gabriel said that, right, Azrin, you know what came to my mind?
What?
War of the Worlds. The Orson Welles one, where we've lost Denise. Umitra's Leela. She has to go for another class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them have classes, yes.
Yeah, so sorry about that. But Gabriel, it's I don't know if you're familiar. I always say this as well. Always broaden your knowledge of film. Watch as many films as you can, read as many scripts as you can. And the story, what you're telling me about it being a prank, that's a great thing. That's the other thing I really love in short films, is that twist at the end, that it makes like watching all this, like I really feel the payoff. And Orson Welles is this, he directed and wrote Citizen Kane. He was very well known in the film world. And when he was a student, he actually did a radio play, because back in those days, they didn't have, it was like black and white movie days. They didn't have television or whatever. So he did a radio play, and he did it so convincingly that Martians had landed and had invaded the earth, and they were going to take over the earth, that everybody listening to it back in those days thought it was real, and they started to panic in the streets. And so it was almost like a prank really gone wrong. They were like hoarding food and like, oh no, the aliens are coming. And it was just a radio show. It was just what it was actually a radio show. So what you told me about the premise, what I like is that you actually draw from your real life. You actually took it from there, like your characters are already made and possibly quite realistic. But the whole fact that they're all aliens, what do they look like? Did you describe what they look like, Gabriel?
I think I described that they are scary looking, and they're all, since they're all very much, they look fake or.
Hello? Yeah. So they're scary looking. Umitra, again, more things for you to unpack here, psychology wise, because I bet all the scary looking ones were your lecturers, and all the fake looking ones were like, people you went to school with. But
so Gabriel, I better not be in it, okay?
No, he is, right? He definitely is. You just don't have to tell him. But you see, that's the wonderful thing. Take stuff from your life. Like Liu, who's in culinary. I mean, there have been wonderful movies about like the culinary world. We've seen them, we love them, not just because we're greedy or hungry all the time, which I'm getting, but it's because it's something that speaks to us. And so when you talk about aliens, but you've said it in a place that is common to all of us. All of us have like gone to school, all of us have been like having like teachers, and all of us, well, not all of us, but I for one love pranks. So I get where you're coming from, and that's an interesting premise. It's just a case of how you want to pull it off. And now you know that story about Orson Welles. Oh, here's another thing. Any story that you can think of, it's original because it's your voice. Because, we're in 2022. Cinema has been around for over 100 years. There's gonna be an overlap. And if you think about the philosophers like Plato, and they're gonna tell you there's only 7 original stories, man against machine, man against man, man against man, all these categories. But what is gonna make it unique is your point of view and your voice to tell these stories. So that was a very cool concept, Gabriel. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Okay. Unfortunately, because of time,
Yes.
no more questions, and probably to wrap up everything, Renee, last words for them in probably what, 4 minutes?
Like, no, 1 minute. I can
Okay.
basically, based on what we've seen, I think all of you know that stories, there's so many different stories out there. And it is an art form to tell it, whether it's a feature film in 2 hours, whether it is a short film in 10 minutes or less, or actually the Academy sees any short film as being, and don't quote me on this, but it is in our rules, as 40 minutes or less. But here's a rule of thumb. The most successful short films are 10 minutes or less, because that really pushes you to tell the story in a short amount of time. But whether it's that, or the feature length film, or even if you're doing, let's say, a limited series, which is like 3 feature films back to back, 6 hours worth of storytelling, the important thing to remember is that your first act is the foundation upon which you will build your entire story, your entire script, what you're trying to say. And that's why you need to have your characters in place. You need to have and be able to introduce them very, very quickly. You have to be able to have your world in place, whether it is an actual place you've been or not been, or you create it. As long as you can make the audience, the reader, buy into that, you're doing things right. And of course, the most important thing is to push all this forward into the rest of your story. And that is where the inciting incident is sort of like your signpost for what you must do to get there. And there are many, as we've seen today with 2 very different types of examples, you can have something that is more psychological and exploratory, or something that is more poignant and heartfelt, but all of them push towards you wanting to know more of the story. And the first act that does that always bears in mind to introduce their characters, build their world, and to really give the task at hand, the motivation, if you will, of the protagonist center stage. Yeah, so just remember that. And like Ajun said, just be a little bit crazy in doing this, as Gabriel has shown us.
Okay, thank you so much, Renee, and for those who stayed extra half an hour. I hope you all have benefited from this short session with Renee. I forgot to mention this. Next thing to write is your second act. Right, that's what we'll be going through next week. Okay, it's the longest act and the toughest act to write. So yeah, I'll put up this recording on Padlet. You can view it again. And again, thank you, Renee, for being here.
Yes, thank you. And all the best to all of you. Maybe one day we'll meet again. But keep writing and keep creating. And thank you so much for sharing. Okay. I hope I get to read your 2 scripts, the whole of it. Okay. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Miss Renee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.